Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me. I'm Sam Hayes with One Stop Transaction Services, and I wanted to share with you today a little bit about what we're doing for Respa and how to have TC fees properly documented. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and we'll go ahead and get this started. So one of the issues that comes up when you are sharing and having the TC fee paid for by your clients is the issue is it fully disclosed? Has it been disclosed ahead of time? Are people aware of it? Has everybody been made aware of it? Do they know where to find the information? All of that. Now, an issue that comes up a lot is also the fact of people say they verbally talked about it and that you've had this conversation with your clients, that they're aware, but there's nothing to document that. And one of the problems that Respa steps into is junk fees and buyers suddenly getting these bills, or sellers as they're getting ready to go ahead and get to the closing table. And suddenly there's all these miscellaneous fees that they were not aware of that they'd be responsible for. So what we're going to walk through today is the reasons why, if you are going to pass on the TC fee to your buyer or seller, what needs to be done, why it needs to be done, how to best document it from what my understanding is. But again, always verify everything with a broker of record that you are working with. So Canva, of course, wants to be a little cranky on me, but that's the only way that ever works. So we'll go ahead and get that set up, and then I can share my screen with you. I don't think it's ever an easy thing when you're doing a Zoom, but that's always part of the fun. Okay, let's see what we got here. Do that. Share screen. There we go. All right, so let's talk about this. This is going in to all about the Respa and what we're doing. Real quick again about me, I'm Sam Hayes, One Stop Transaction Services. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I'm CAR certified TC, forms trainer. I'm a realtor, a notary, and I'm just a big forms nerd and love this stuff. So I'm all about learning and sharing how to get it done properly from the beginning so that you don't have any problems down the line. What's Respa? So Respa is all about, it's the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act. And this is to go through and make sure that everybody's in compliance, that everybody understands and has been disclosed what it really is a real estate fee, what's not a real estate fee, what's a junk fee. It's protection for the consumer. We want to stay in compliance with that because that gets into federal levels and all the big scary problems. So part of what we're doing today is talking about making sure you know how to document these fees that you're passing on to your clients. It's not seen as a junk fee and everybody's aware of everything ahead of time. Biggest thing to start with, do not put the TC fee in the RPA. If you're here in California, RPA 1D, agents are not party to the contract. When you're passing on a TC fee for myself or any other transaction coordinator you're working with, that's a relationship between the agent TC, broker TC. That is not anything that is a relationship between the two buyers and sellers. None of us are party to the real estate contract. Per right there below, disclosure saying that we are not part of this and they are not parties to the agreement. So you are adding a fee that they have not had a chance to discuss with you. That's why we want to utilize the buyer representation, broker compensation, or the residential listing agreement. So they're disclosed to these clients prior to going under contract. They're aware of it. It's not kind of something, well, I'm already stuck because we're in the contract. It's making sure that you've had clear communication with them ahead of times and we have a proper documentation path to go with. This is an article from Cress. I will drop the link into the chat as well as add it to anybody who wants to email me if you're watching this on the replay or if you're watching this live on Facebook. If you want to either DM me, I can send you the direct link. But the biggest thing that Cress said, and this is an article from about 2018, is it needs to be disclosed in writing to the principal. Again, that's why we're talking about this. It just needs to be disclosed and upfront. It's a very clear communication if you're passing on the fee, because I work for you as the agent. We need to make sure they're aware of it. And then you still have the obligation to pay the TC fee. So if your client declines, that doesn't mean that you don't pay that TC. We're doing just as much work regardless of who's paying for us. We're here to protect you and the brokerage to create compliant files of documentation. You still, as the agent, have the responsibility for payment to the TC, even if your client has agreed and then declines towards the end of the transaction. That's something to stay aware of. And depending on what your relationship is with your TC, what contractual documents you may have signed, independent contractor agreements, items along those lines. But it's something to make sure that you're aware of, that yes, while you are asking this fee to be passed on to your clients, You are still ultimately responsible because you are the hiring party. And it also is, if you don't reference it in there, they have a right to refuse it. So if you haven't told them, if you've done a listing agreement, if you've done a buyer representation broker compensation and didn't put the TC fee in, but you talked about it, we can make amendments. The modification of terms has actually been changed because that's the document you want, is the modification of terms for both the residential listing agreement and also the BRBC. Both are because they do not have a place for a buyer seller to sign. It's for the client and the agent to sign, because both of those contracts are between the client and the agent. Makes sense. Now, this was also an article that's referenced, and this has been revised last year about administration fees from CAR. I have this pamphlet to print out. I will put it into the Zoom chat. Also, if you'd like a direct link to it, the link's down at the bottom. I have the PDF copy. Feel free to message me for it. This goes into how CAR views everything. Now they're saying as long as it's very clearly, it needs to be not just specific kind of general ones. There was an issue years ago where they were doing, some of the brokerages were adding an admin fee, but it really wasn't for anything administration more that was already being done on the file. So the issue was, it was kind of like suddenly let's charge this extra fee and we'll say it's for this, but that's work that should have been provided regardless. Similar to working with a transaction coordinator, yes, an agent can completely do this work. Yes, the broker can completely do this work. Part of why we're here is we are experts in these specific forms and topics, and we stay up to date with risk management and making sure that we are aware of all the newest compliance laws and different things that are coming out to help assist. Because doing a real estate transaction in Southern California, there's so many different things that you have to know between the CMA, current market analysis, escrow issues, lending issues, what's the current rates. It's great to have a team built together, and that's where TCs come in. This is typically certainly legal, as it says, as long as it's not in a deceptive manner. Deceptive manner. Well, let's tell them up front. If you're going to pass on the fee, let's make sure that that information is shared. And if there's an independent contractor, it can also be an issue. So you've got to make sure that it's clear. Are they in-house TC? Are they part of the brokerage? Is it a separate individual? And then you go into different brokers, how they like things paid. Is it a licensed TC? There's a lot of levels to this. So you're going to verify how your broker wants it documented for your file to make sure that they feel that they are in compliance with DRE. Independent versus in-house TC. So myself, I am an independent transaction coordinator. I carry my own E&O. I work independently. As we go through the forms in the next little bit, I would be more as an additional fee because I'm not being paid to the brokerage since I am separate from the brokerage. I'm working as an independent administrative professional assisting with documentation. In-house TC, that could go into where it is an administrative fee. That's going into, is this something separate from what I'm already paying you, the broker, as an overall commission? Is this individual on your payroll? Is this part of the staff you bring with our relationship? These are things you're going to need to consider when you're doing your documentation, how you do your documentation, and what is required for your brokerage. If you are asking the buyer to pay for the TC fee, I highly recommend verify all what the broker of record is. I'm going to be a broken record myself, sitting here saying, I highly recommend you use the buyer representation broker compensation. I would have that signed prior to anything that you're doing. Put them in the car, showing any properties, writing any offers. And this way you can be very clear that you asked them to pay for the TC fee. Now, there's two places you can do this. This is my take on it. Verify all with your broker of record. But if it's somebody who's an in-house TC, if it's part of, your brokerage, that TC works for your brokerage solely, I would typically say that you would do section 4A here, and then you would have your percentage of what commission you would expect them to cover for you if it's not covered by the seller, and TC fee amount. Now, if you're working with an independent TC, because I would not be part of what's going to the broker, since my payment would be separate from the brokerage, I'm an administrative service fee, I would use 11 for other terms. That way it's totally separate. And it's very clear that this is not part of the commission. This is not part of what's going to the brokerage, but this is a separate sub fee that is being charged, like a subcontractor situation. If you're working to do a remodel or anything along those lines, loan processor, similar thing. Again, if they're independent versus in-house for that broker. If you're working with a seller and you want to ask for them for compensation to for payment. Again, same situation. If it's an in-house TC, you can do 3A where it says the amount or percentage, and you can clarify here for transaction coordinator. I have agents who do this that I'm not part of their brokerage. It's kind of up to your broker and how you want to handle that. If it's an independent TC, then you would go to RLA 19, again, clarifying to be paid at the end of close of escrow, and that the fee is going to somebody who's not part of the brokerage. Again, separation. All of this circles back to just clear communication and documentation. That's all it is. It's letting your clients know. It's not being all nervous and, oh, I'm going to slide this in. It's being very clear and just saying, this is what I'm asking you to pay for. This is part of my business model. Here's what I'd like to share with you. Easy peasy, right? I would highly recommend doing some dry runs, some role playing, practicing in your office. The more comfortable you are with this conversation, the more comfortable you will come across to your clients, and it's no big deal. We're here to help and support you. So to circle back, because this is a pretty short and sweet presentation, but if you're going to work with a buyer or a seller, you're going to want to go ahead and have them pay the TC fee. You need to be upfront about it. It needs to be disclosed prior to going under contract. You need to clarify if it's part of an in-house TC, out-of-house TC, independent, what your broker requires, and then make sure everybody signs everything ahead of time, gets a copy, and then you're good to go. It's handled. If you have any questions on this or any other topic, feel free to give me a call, 619-993-7264. I'll be back again next week to talk about credits. How do you document them? Who's responsible for getting them called in? I know we've all had a file where the credit didn't show up or somebody missed it. Well, we're all part of the transaction, and the more we can communicate it, the better we can do. Thanks for being here, Tina. Thanks everybody for joining me. Hope you have a great day. Again, Sam Hayes, One Stop Transaction Services, 619-993-7264. Make sure you verify all with the broker of record of the file you're working on. Have a great day.